right, everybody, man, I got a smooth sister on the channel today. Oh my God, she is, let me tell you how nice she is. She just a second ago, I was looking at her, I said, you got a window behind you. Can you move the window? She said, sure. I want to get this right. I want people to see me and hear this history for sure. And I'm so excited because I know she's a busy woman. She's rocking and rolling, doing what she do. And here she is on Strong Inspirations. Oh my God. You know, I'm Anthony Brogdon, and I find these experts. I find these conscious people. I find these people who given their life for us to hear the stories. And I'm so excited that this is what they have agreed to do with little old me, which I ain't really little no more. I have gone international, my friends. I got people from around the world sharing this history. Look at the channel. I'm doing my own festival, watch out, in Kansas City, Kansas, May 27th through the 29th. I call it Freedom Quindaro, where at the day, 1800s, them slaves walked across that Missouri River when it froze and ended up in Quindaro. And then they told that man, don't come over here looking for us because we ain't going back. We not going back. Don't come over here. It's too late. I done got away. I've had enough of you. Come and check me out. I'm going to be putting out the information any day now, and I can only take 1,000 people. And we're going to have a party. We're going to have a picnic. We're going to have tours. We're going to have church service, and we're going to hear the voices of those people. Watch me. It's coming up. And so a lot of things is happening on the channel. Oh man, I'm gonna have 2 or 3 of them. Have you seen the video of who said his great-great-grandfather was in the KKK? He admitted it to us. Watch that video. Have you seen the video of the Clinton massacre? You ain't heard of that one. Watch that video. Or the Elaine massacre, or the Tulsa massacre. Or, and it ain't all that kind of gloom and doom type news. How about the great-great-granddaughters of the guy who was once slave and opened up a car manufacturing company and was competing against Fords? Watch that video. Oh, and so what I ask you to do is hit the subscribe button on Strong Inspirations. It don't cost you nothing. It don't ask no information. What it does do, I ain't gonna lie to you, my friends, and let me know you like me, that you watching me. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button on this video, because watch out, this sister gonna put it on you in an accent. She gonna accent you, man. She the real deal. Watch this, like this video, hit the notifications bell for when the videos come up. You get a ding, electric shock, a smoke signal, something to say, hey man, lady, Strong Inspirations done got something else they done shared. And I don't put no particular time when I'm sharing them, because sometimes I can't sleep and I say, ooh, let's share some Black history. There it is. Do this for me. And a few more things, my friends. As you know, I tell you almost every time, I'm a filmmaker and I'm serious about my game, about this Black history. 2 years of my life have gone into this documentary called Business in the Black. And if you're in business, that's where you want to be. I released it in 2017, and in 2 years, I went to 40 cities on my own dime, showing this film. It is good. It starts with and ends with a guy that at the time was 101 years old. And let me tell you that one of the few things, or not the few things, one of the last things he said in the film was, you can't tell me nothing. I know it all, 100 years old. Boom, watch this. It's streaming on Amazon. And the response was so good, I decided to write the book. Black business book. It's got over 200 facts. I'm so confident that you're going to learn something new that if you don't, I give your money back. I'm telling you, this book is good. Not just because I wrote it. I had somebody else tell me that. A few people. And it's easy to read. Every 10th book I sell, I donate one to a school. I want them to know this good Black history. So get my book, please. It's on Amazon also, but also you can go to my website, my friends, where you learn more, businessintheblack.net. Go there today, order the book, and I will ship it out because I don't need them in my basement no longer. I want you to have them. Now, you hear me use this word strong a lot, right? Strong stands for strength, tenacity, resilience, and a sense of oneness, nobility, and grace. That's my introduction to the guest today. Watch out, she gonna overpower you. She gonna put something on your head. You're gonna be like, oh my God, I gotta watch it again. Sister, come on, introduce yourself. Thanks for coming on the channel.
What an amazing introduction. Can I do better than that?
Yes. You share that history, that's already done.
I can live up to your description and expectations. My name is Sylvia Lamb. I'm the president of Lamb PR, which is a public relations organization. And I am, as I said, I'm the president. And I am living in Denver, and my great passion is Black history and forwarding the Black agenda. And so I've been in Denver like 4 years now, and I'm seeking all the Black history that is here, and doing a comparison actually with the Black history that is in England. And you know, back in the day, our people that were trying to hold us down were all about divide and rule, but I'm here to unite and celebrate.
I love it. The gap that okay, but hold on, before you go any further, sister, I got to talk about you for a second now. Where are you from?
I'm from London, England.
England.
Hence the accent. A bit about my background, and again, it's about Black history, and I think it's really important for a lot of Black Americans, African Americans, to understand that there is a difference in the history of what across the Atlantic. My parents my mom's from Barbados and my dad's from Ghana. They came over to England in the early 60s at the request of the British government to rebuild the country after the war, and doing the jobs basically the British didn't want to do. So my mum came over as a nurse and my dad came over as a telephone engineer. And
okay,
so,
hold on. We're going to get some more on that, but I got to stay on you for a second. So you grew up there and went to grade school and high school and all that in London?
Yeah, I was born in London. I was born in South London, and my education was in England. And yeah, that's right. So I'm a Brit.
Okay,
Brit.
okay.
I'm
How
a
about
Londoner.
Did you grow up in a Black neighborhood?
That's really interesting you say. In England, it's difficult to grow up in a Black neighborhood. There isn't the percentage of Black people like there is over here.
Okay.
So in England, the percentage of African Caribbeans, as they're called, is about 4% of the population. So it's very small. So
okay.
You don't really have a community like you would down south or in New York or in those kind of places. There's no way that anywhere I would go, unless it's like a house party or something where there's only going to be Black people. My neighbors are it's very cosmopolitan. So they're white, they're Southeast Asian, they're Asian, they're, you know, so it's very multicultural. Okay. So you can't really there isn't a Black economy like there is here. Yeah. So to a certain extent, you're at the behest of the wider mainstream community, which in some ways it is very trying. However, the success that the Black people make in England is I can say it's far more laudable, because there's no other way they're going to make a success unless they break through the racist barriers that are there.
Yeah, okay, because I definitely want to get into that. But you said it's trying. It's trying because you can lose your Black identity there?
Oh yes, of course. But I think you can lose your Black identity anywhere. Sure. But I think it is easier. You have to be down with the struggle. I say my father was from Ghana, so I grew up in a household that was all about Kwame Nkrumah. It was all about, the history of the British conquering and overtaking what was then the Gold Coast. And so I've always been politically minded. And so and I've always had a sense of equality and justice and equality of opportunity, because education was a big deal for my father.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, I mean, you have to, I couldn't, we don't have something that's the equivalent of the NAACP, for example.
Right.
There isn't
Okay.
that there. Black History Month is in October, and that was developed later than it was in the US. So there's the history of Black people in England, even though it goes way back. We're talking about Queen Charlotte, who was supposed to be Black all these years ago.
Yeah.
And because of slavery, they were there. But in reality, Black people and their presence and their cultural contribution to the UK didn't happen until, I would say, the Windrush.
Okay, then well, that leads to this then, and I think you're addressing it. Growing up, is there a building where all of the Black people come together for some cultural stuff?
A building? Oh gosh,
there's an organization like.
Oh yeah, no, I wouldn't say so. I mean, there is there's a Museum of Slavery, for example, that is in Liverpool. And so there's a place there, I suppose.
Okay.
We have Operation Black Vote, which is an organization that's encouraging Black people, obviously, to vote.
Okay.
There is an area in South London, which I would say is the Black capital of Europe, not just London, called Brixton. I used to live there, where you would say there is if you're a Black person and living in the UK, you should have always have been to Brixton. There's where you're going to get your food. There's going to, there are Black shops, there are Black, restaurants and things like that. Okay. And so it's not, it's nothing compared to Harlem, but I would say Brixton is the closest you could get to Harlem.
I got you.
In New York.
Were you able to, do they teach Black history of any sort in the schools?
Oh, that's interesting. I would say no. That's a big cause and a campaign that Black people are trying to get, that, when it comes to history of England, Black history has to be included. And so there's lots of voices saying that should be something that should be taught. In Wales, recently, the Board of Education has said, yes, we're going to start teaching Black history, but that's just in Wales. What about England? What about Scotland? What about Ireland? So it's nothing that is actually put down in the books that's something that should be taught. We learn about slavery as a history, but I just remember seeing pictures of Black people in chains. But you didn't learn about the culpability that the British had in this slavery and talk about the pain and the injustice on that level. So there's much more that we could learn. There is a Black author. His name is David Olusoga.
Yeah, I've seen his name. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's amazing. If you could ever get to interview him,
oh sure,
the person.
I've sent him messages.
Oh yes, no, yeah, without a doubt, and he would be someone who would be the face of Black history in the UK, and he's the one who's forwarding that agenda and saying we need this history to be taught. And
what they would be doing, and that's the same thing here in America, understandably, what they would be doing is they would be having to say, we were the ones committing all these atrocities.
Yes, and I think it's about being able to have our narrative and understanding that what we say is part of the story. You're just giving one side. And in fact, your side is so skewed because it's about keeping us down, and ignorance is the whole point of power. And so and giving us our props. This the history of the world is based in Africa. It started in Africa, but people, some people just don't want to hear that because it's uncomfortable. They don't want to give you props. You know what I mean? But I would say in England, I would say my friends are a mix. I have Asian friends, I have Black friends, I have white friends. However, if I'm having a birthday party, it's going to be Black. It's going to be Black music. It's going to be the Black culture. It's going to be all the Black food. and that's, you know, so I have that sense of identity, so it's not lost.
Oh, I
And
got
so
you.
when so when I'm mixing with different people, I'm coming as a Black person.
I love it. Let me ask you this. Okay, so did you know any Black history in America growing up? Were you able to hear any of those stories?
No. I think it's something that I had to seek out.
Okay.
I think it was it must have been about 2010, 2011. I started, along with some other people, as a co-founder of the Blackhistory group in South London, in one of the boroughs there.
Oh, really?
And they said, you know, we need to, you know, celebrate Black history. And so we got together and put events. So we had Black authors to come to libraries to talk. We had people from the health service to come and give workshops about Black health, and basically just get it out there that, you know, this area of London called Sutton is celebrating Black history. Obviously places like Liverpool, Birmingham, Bristol, and Brixton, they had a larger percentage of Black people, so they were doing that already. But in this part of London, which was really predominantly white, we said, you know, and there weren't that many Black people, we said it's still important. And then through we asked schools to do projects, you know, talk about, you know, a Black person who is significant. And so obviously Martin Luther King would come up. Yeah. We would have lots of Black American people, Harriet Tubman, those kind of people.
So you heard those names?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, but that was something I had to sort out. It wasn't ever taught in schools. It's because I am very conscious in that way. Yes, and knowing knowledge is power. I needed to know who are the greats, who are our heroes. And so a lot of information was found. You could easily find that information. You know, I remember reading Malcolm X's book and feeling, you know, really empowered and feeling a sense of strength in that, and saying, you know, these Black people all these years ago are telling these truths that are still very significant today, even across the Atlantic.
Let me ask you this question, and I mean no disrespect in this question here. In America, if they wanted to say something derogatory to you as a Black person, they'll call you a nigger. Is there a term that they call Black people over there that's derogatory, similar to nigger?
That it's interesting. That doesn't get lost in translation. Nigger is nigger.
Oh, really? So you could hear that over there?
Yes. You would see. You know, it's social media. Does anybody actually call me that to my face? No. Not saying that people don't refer to me as that, but the words would be, it'd be nigger, it would be nignog, it would be wog, it would be jungle bunny. It would be those are the derogatory terms that they would be more prevalent, that I would have heard when I was growing up. Okay, you know, those were much more accessible, much more widely used. Oh, I got you. Nigger, so not so much. But, you know, any word that they can use, they're going to use it. So. Yeah,
I got you. Let me go a little bit on this timeline. Okay, life started in Africa for people, Black people. Black people then were brought to, and correct me as I go along, were brought to London as slaves.
Yes, but only a few of them. You know, really? There wasn't that. You know, so they came as. You know, they could be playthings, you know, for the lauded gentry. And so they may be butlers, you know, but there wasn't an influx because there weren't plantations. Right. Okay. And so they might have been working in homes, people's houses, but it wasn't the influx like there was in the mass theft of people that came to England. Okay. What they did do is the British obviously took them to the States, then they took them to the Caribbean as well. Right, that we're going to get. So there's where they were. And so what you'll find, excuse me, if you were to speak to many Black people in the UK, their history isn't from way back when, you know, when slavery started, and they would have generations of people that have, like there is in America, that have been brought up in England. A lot of them would be like me. You know, their parents came in the 40s, 50s, 60s. I'm first generation in the UK. And so that would be their history. And in a certain way, knowing that you have come from somewhere else gives you a certain level of strength as well. You know, like for example, this year for Christmas, I'm going to Barbados. I'm going to my mum's house. She built a house there, and I'm going to where she grew up. The road that she grew up on is now called Greenwich Road, and that is her maiden name, and that's her family name. So along that road, my cousins, my uncles, my aunts, everybody lives there. And so I've got a touchstone to somewhere else, and to a country where it is majority Black. Don't get me wrong. Don't say there are, you know, they still have a certain level of, there is colorism, there is slave mentality in that way, but it's somehow different than it is here, I would say.
Yeah, I got you.
And obviously I feel blessed that, you know, I have a father who's actually from Ghana. And so I have a real direct connection with Africa. And so visiting the village, seeing that my cousin is actually a witch doctor in the village, seeing that and having that touchstone, it gives me a certain sense of self-esteem and a sense of real identity.
I love it.
And so it's for example, I remember you know, growing up, my dad and his brother were in England, and they had a tribal mark just here, just a cut in their face. And so that was, everybody had that because that's where, you know, so you know which tribe you're from. And I remember when I was 12 and I went over there with my dad and my mom and my sister, we went to the village, and obviously we got there, the long drive from Accra to Kumasi, and on a dirt road. And then we get to the village, and then everybody comes out because obviously we're from Britain, we look different, and all the children and everybody has the same tribal mark from that village. And there was just, I'm just thinking, I'm related to all these people here, you know, and to have that sense of community for all these years and across the ocean gives you a sense of identity, because I think that is what slavery and, you know, the disaffecting people has, it really, it destroys people's inner soul.
Really?
And that's one thing I feel that I have, and one thing I feel that I don't have is that lack of identity.
Okay. So is there any slavery in your family somewhere? Or
there has to be. My mom, because she's from Barbados. Yeah, exactly. She's actually mixed race. Her mother was a Black woman and married a white man. And he
married him or had to do it?
No, she married. No, he was disowned by all his family.
Oh, so it wasn't he raped nothing like that, if I may say. Oh, okay.
No. He was. Yeah, no, he was one of the, because you would think of all the white people that were in the Caribbean, they were all rich plantation owners, but then not all of them were. Some of them, you know, they came over to different parts of the British Empire as working class people working on the land and everything. And he was one of those people. But by the fact that he was white, he was always better, wasn't he, anyway? But who I'd never met, he died in the 50s. But yeah, so my mum is mixed race. But her mother, yeah, is a product of slavery, you know, of all those years. But there's something, but they used in Barbados, they call it Little England, and so there's a lot of colorism, and so that's something my mum brought to England.
Let me ask you this: do you know this one? And I talked to a guy on the channel from Jamaica, and I asked him, I said, okay, it's a small island, you got slavery, how do people escape? Do you know how they escaped slavery in Barbados?
No, they did.
They go to the mountains, and he said they go to the hills.
Yeah,
I suppose. How does slavery end in Barbados?
Slavery ended when they decided in England that slavery was going to end. And so they're in Parliament, they said, we want to abolish slavery. And so they did. And that was when slavery was ended across the empire. And so that's when it, obviously there were uprisings in Barbados the same way there were in Jamaica and across all of the islands.
Okay.
But they were quashed all the time. And but Barbados got its independence in the late 60s. And now, I don't know if you know about Barbados, it's actually going to become a republic. It's no longer going to be, the Queen is no longer going to be head of state.
Yeah, I heard that.
Which is amazing. And you know what, to be honest, I didn't even realize she was a head of state in that way still. Which is great. And so, as you say, it's a small, where do people go? People, that's where they are, until it's just because the British said, okay, there's going to be the end of slavery.
One more Barbados question like this. Is there somebody that's noted to be an activist or who helped end slavery over there, that was big of a revolt like there is in Jamaica? Moquet, I think the name is. Is there somebody like that in Barbados,
Not to that extent. There isn't, not in that way. You talk about Jamaica, you hear of that what's it? I can't remember his name.
Moquet or something, I think is the name.
I can't remember his name actually. Louvershaw, it's a French name. But I think in Barbados there is, not that I know of. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying there isn't. Because I'm sure, and also it's these names that you don't really know about, because no one tells you about these things. And the fact that they're quashed, that's it. Barbados has always been called Little England, because it's interesting when you go there, you'll see red letterboxes which you have in England. It's in Barbados as well, and so you still see the history there. But it's a black country. When I'm going to go there at Christmas, and I feel I'm going to a black place. I don't feel as if I'm going.
I love it.
Yeah.
So your mom decides. Who calls them and says, "Come back to England"?
Oh, well, they say, "Come to England." It's the British government. They say, there's all these jobs after the war, people have died, the infrastructure needs to be rebuilt. And so they've still colonized all these places. They're still part of the colony in the 40s. So Ghana is not called Ghana, it's called the Gold Coast. And so there's all these, there's Nigeria, there's, the swathes of the Caribbean. And so, they said the sun never set on the empire, because Britain had so many countries that it was ruling. And it says, you are British subjects. You have rights to come here. Can you come here? Come to the motherland. The streets are paved with gold. And we want you to come here.
And we're going to give you a fair shake and all that other stuff, I'm sure.
Yeah, because, and we want you because you are British. You are a British subject. Okay, and we need you to help, repair the motherland. And in 1948, it's called Windrush. It was the first boat that brought Jamaicans to England. And
so they got on a boat to go back to England.
Yeah, it's a ship. But
really, okay.
Yeah, it's Windrush.
We don't get enough of them boats, I tell you.
Exactly. But it's Windrush, and that's why that was the name of the boat, the ship. And it's really important that I say that's Windrush, because they are called the Windrush generation. And so that is the start of the heavy migration of Black people from across the empire to come to settle in England.
Okay, let me ask you this. Is it a free boat ride, or you got to pay?
I think you had to pay. Yeah, you did have to pay. You did have to pay, but I don't know how much it was, but you had to pay. It should have been free, shouldn't it? You say that.
We want you that bad. You got to pay to come back.
And there was boats, and that was the very first. They were coming through. My mum's sister came in the late 50s from Barbados, but she came in 1960, and she came on a plane. Okay,
let me ask you this. Was there resistance of the people in England seeing all these Black folks come back?
Yes, of course there was. Notting Hill.
Oh, my God.
Yes, of course, the Notting Hill riots. I'm not too sure if you've ever heard of Notting Hill. It's in London, and there's where a main place where lots of Black people stayed. They came, and there was the Teddy Boys and the rockers that would chase them down the street and beat them up. Lots of racism.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because and my mum would and my dad, they talk about when they first came to the country, about how racist it was. How that people would say things to them on the street. Oh, and they used to be, if they're trying to find somewhere to stay, there would be, they're trying to stay in, a bed and breakfast or in someone's house to become a lodger. They would say it was okay to say no Blacks, no dogs, no Irish. And then that was the start of the race relations law to not allow that. But obviously there's ways that you can have people in there, but and decide who you want to be living in your house. But that was a big thing. But it wasn't, so that could have been seen as like a kind of Jim Crow.
Yeah. Oh, really? Okay.
However, it was never put in any legality. And so in anything that, the race relation laws stopped that. And so that's why the history is different. And so the law never legislated discrimination, whereas it did in the States, and which I understand now being in the States. I don't think I really understood Jim Crow laws until I came here. Because there's racism wears many different hats and has different masks.
Sure.
And even though it's not in legislation, was it difficult for my father to be promoted to manager within the telecommunications? Yes, it was. And so he left. Was it, was my mum called all different kind of names by patients she was dealing with? Yes, she was.
Really?
And so they had to deal with racism on a day-to-day basis. And so, yes, there's racism, but I said it's different, but it's still racism. But yeah, you're right. There was lots of, there was race riots, and there was one MP called it the Rivers of Blood speech, Enoch Powell in the early 70s, who talked about Black people coming to this country that should stop. And it's like, the River Tiber was going to break because of the influx of all these Black people, and there's going to be this, there's going to be that, and it was just out and out racist. The things that he was saying. There was the National Front, which was a political party that said, niggers out, Blacks out, all that kind of stuff. You go home, you go back on your banana boat. It was all of that. And that's what Black people had to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And I know, for me, it wasn't as bad as it was for my parents. But, getting a job and moving up in the social strata, it's difficult because I'm Black, but I did have opportunities, and that's what my parents obviously wanted, was to have better opportunities in the UK than I would have had if my parents had stayed.
So I'm gonna go back to this one again. Then you kind of alluded. So when you were growing up, how did they tease you somehow in a Black way, like, hey, or okay, why don't you go back on the boat or something like that?
I never got that, but what was interesting, because of the divide and rule, I found it difficult as a Black person who had a father who was from Ghana and a parent who was from the Caribbean, because that was very unusual. My name is Sylvia Ama Anochua Apoku. That is on my birth certificate. And so, in assembly, calling out my name, Sylvia Pokel, there would be people that would be giggling because my name is different. If you were Caribbean, if your parents were from Jamaica, you had your slave names. Your name was James, Johnson, whatever it was.
Really?
And so I was different. And that was how, my mum, she said that when she came to England and she told her family that she was marrying an African, and they said, careful, he might eat you. And that is so sad.
Okay, let me ask you this one. You're a brilliant lady. Did you, and you getting all A's in grade school, did they try not to give you the class valedictorian or something like that you felt yourself that they were trying to hold you back?
Interesting. No, surprised. I was in the top class at school because I was bright, and I never felt that. However, did they ever, when we had our careers lesson, never encouraged me to do anything that would, what I ended up doing.
Really?
Being in the media. I worked for the BBC. That was never anything that was shown that was a possibility that I could do.
Yeah, I've heard that, because I've been to London a couple of times, and the people that I visited, they were like, if you got one career shot, and if you mess that up, it's not like you can recover or go to higher heights. And even I think the guy I was visiting, he was a lawyer. I don't know what he did in his career path.
Yeah, you know what? I think I've had a fairly colorful and just I would say a fairly interesting life. I knew that I wanted to be somebody. Wasn't too sure exactly what it was, but that's what my father told me, he said, you're a princess, you're African princess, I am, I've come from royalty, you can be somebody. And so I've always had a sense of self. And I started working in a telephone company when I finished work, studies, but I just knew there's more to life than this. And I just knew I wanted to make some kind of impact. And so I had a friend who I was at college with, her parents were from Poland, they were immigrants. And it was a time where it was just after the Berlin Wall came down. Communism had been destroyed. And she said, you know what, there's lots of opportunities in Poland. So I jacked in my job. I said, I'm going there. Let's see what, I'm going to have an adventure. So I went there, and things were open to me that would never be open to me if I was stayed in England.
Really?
Because I was a novelty for one. And don't get me wrong, it was racist there. However, I would go into the British Embassy because I was British. And so I was meeting with, highfalutin people that I would never have met if I was in England.
Okay.
And so the media and, radio and television, it was once state controlled, was now becoming commercial. And I met somebody who says, she was a woman. She says, I'm doing a show. It's going to be a hip hop show. Can you come on the show and talk? And I said, okay, not hip hop was never my musical genre of choice, but hey, but no, in England, no one was ever asking me to go on the radio and talk on the radio.
Yeah.
I was so far removed. And so I did that. And so it was something saying, yeah, I can do this. Came back to England and I did a course. It was open for African Caribbean people. It was for the BBC, a radio production course. And because I had that opportunity, I'd worked in radio back in Poland, and it was interesting. And that's when I started.
Yeah. And so you decide to come to America.
Yes.
Because that I'm I've heard of it, I love it, and I'm not going to maybe have some of those things. Did you had you got tired of that, fighting that every day?
You know what, I think it's not that actually. I think the reason why I came to America was far more personal, more than political. Life is a funny thing. I married an American, a white American in London.
Oh, okay. So that's how you got here. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. However, I had no intention to come to America. It was of no interest to me. I was happy living in London. However, we had a child, and then it was 5 years ago now, he died. He had a massive heart attack. And as I said, at the beginning of this conversation, self-esteem and identity is the most important thing that you can ever give to your child. And my thing was, I can't give him his father, but I can give him a sense of his American identity. So I packed up everything and came out to America.
Oh, and so you do what now? You study history at the beginning, and there's stories that you tell?
Again, I came here wanting the Black American experience,
Yeah.
the Black experience. And so I sought out the Black American West Museum. It came up in a Google search. Yeah. And I started volunteering there. And I learned about Black Americans in the West, which I would never have. I never knew there were black cowboys. And I'm thinking there's all this untold history that not only I can be a conduit, because I know back in England, they don't know anything about that.
I can imagine.
And so I think, again, it's the unite and celebrate and educate. And so I've told so many people in England. And so, and I can tell the story. Not only a lot of Black Americans don't even know about the Black cowboys. And so I just think, using my media skills, using my public relations, giving a voice to the unheard, giving a voice to the untold stories, in order to strengthen who we are as a global community. And learning about Dr. Justina Ford, learning about her being the first African-American female licensed doctor in Colorado, and just her whole history, and an understanding that she was someone who, under many different and difficult situations, still had a good heart and was working for a cosmopolitan, multicultural community, and doing and just being selfless. And I just looked at her and thought, she's inspirational, and I wanted to tell her story.
So now you like, have you gone to New York and really walked Harlem and said, oh my God, I can't imagine, this is mind blowing, seeing all this blackness up and down 125th Street. Have you ever done that?
Yeah, interestingly enough, when my mum came to England from Barbados, her cousins and people went to New York. They went and lived in Brooklyn. So I'd visited New York before, and I stayed.
Yeah, so you've seen that, yeah.
So I went to, I've been to Brooklyn, and so it was amazing. How there are just so many Black people. I do not see anybody else, you know, and in a country where I would expect, because obviously I'd been to Ghana, and so I knew there was loads of Black people there,
I'm sure,
which I'd expected. But going to a country where it is multicultural, that I can be in an area where there is only Black people. I've been to Harlem. I went there anyway, but I've got a friend who lives in Harlem, who came from England, who lived in, a Black woman, and she lives in Harlem. Went to Sylvia's restaurant, and just seeing that, you know, there's the Apollo, there's, you know, there is an infrastructure that is solely Black, and so yes, that is something that is very different. I
love it.
But I am used to multiculturalism. I am, and I think I learn a lot from other people. And I think the mere fact that I have that attitude, I can educate people on a grassroots level.
I got you,
because I have, I've got white friends.
So now, are you writing a book or something like that for people, and maybe targeting this book for people in Europe to understand what you've come to understand?
Interesting. People tell me I should write a book, and it's maybe something I do further down the line. But currently, so with Dr. Justina Ford, I was so inspired by her. It was her 150th birthday earlier this year, and so decided to produce some birthday greetings from people, from the Broncos players, from the governor, from the mayor, just to say happy birthday and put that out there, so people recognize who she is and what she has given to the community and the wider community and to the global community, because I think her story is great.
Who is this you're speaking of?
Dr. Justina Ford. And she's the first, yes, she's amazing. She's the first African-American female licensed doctor in Colorado, originally from Chicago, Illinois. She moved across to Denver, and she delivered over 7,000 babies. And so that's what she's famous for. Now I applied for a proclamation. So the 22nd of January every year is now Dr. Justina Ford Day. And so I put together, and it ended up being a documentary about her. And I had someone, a reenactor who filmed her. I had a house was in, I don't know if you know, the 5 Points area of Denver it's actually called the Harlem of the West back in the day. And so those were all loads of Black, and there's where she lived. And our house was actually moved from one part of 5 Points to another part, which is now the Black American West Museum. And that was, I love it.
So you kind of even become an activist to some extent.
I just think an activist. I'm here, I think, to join up those dots. And I am someone, and so when you reached out to me, I thought, yeah, this is just an opportunity just to tell the story.
Yes.
From my perspective, from a Black British perspective, and also just from a Black person who sees the worth of the story of Black people in the West and their history, that I've come to learn. And so I've made this, and it was picked up by PBS. So actually I should send you the link. So it's on Rocky Mountain PBS.
And for everybody to be able to see it, who viewed the show too, we're going to put that in the description.
Yeah, definitely. And so it has the whole history, and it has people that were actually were delivered by her, who are alive. And I've got one who was a patient, and she was 14 when Dr. Justina Ford delivered her twins. And she's still alive, and she's an amazing Black woman. And she talks
Yes.
about the relationship she had with this woman. And so she's in the film and she's talking. And so this was something that I just put together. I'm actually producing a more in-depth film that looks about the social issues that she faced back in those days, and how they compare to now with the health system. Because I think I'm from Europe, and we're kind of a bit more left of centre, and so you have socialised healthcare in the UK, and this is something that Dr. Justina Ford wrote in a letter, because she was denied membership of the Colorado Medical Society because she was Black and she was a woman, and that's when she set up on her own, and she had a surgery in her own house, and so she went to different people's house to deliver their children, a lot of people who didn't have insurance, who were immigrants, and a lot of them time they didn't have money to pay her, so they paid her in good services.
I love
it. And she says, you know, she and so when she first came, and she said she had her license to practice medicine, but they denied her. And then in one letter, famous letter that she wrote to the Colorado Medical Society, says, this is where it says, I've delivered over 7,000 babies. And I want to be a member. I have every right to be a member of your society. And I believe in socialized healthcare.
Let me ask you, what, as we kind of come to a close, I want to go back to Europe once, just on this regard. How far advanced are they now? Are they moving forward? Can there be a Black person that I think some in Parliament now? I mean, there has been some advances.
Yes, there's something at the top of the show, the top of this conversation. You talked about Black people, and I mentioned about selling out. And so what I find is that the difference is, I think in America, you can be Black and be Black in your own economy, your own community, and you can make strides. I think in England, we're not there yet, whether that's about the amount of people. But what you'll find is, if you're a Black person and you want to be in a position of power, you're going to have to don white attitudes. You know, they're not coming to power to forward the Black agenda. They're not talking about Black History Month. They're not talking about any of those things. They are just a politician who happen to be Black. It's like, you know, it's
I got you.
They're white with Black faces.
Ooh. Ooh. Boy, man, that's deep. Is there a question that I have not asked you, something that you wanted to bring up? Tell us how people can, do you have a website?
Yes, I have a website. My website is lambpr.com, and that's if you want any PR services. As I say, I give a voice to the voiceless. I uplift the underserved in our community. I bring my professional PR skills to organizations that say to themselves, why am I not featured in the newspaper, on the radio? Come to me and I'll get you that. Also, I have a Facebook page, which is the Dr. Justina Ford Facebook page. Please like it, and you can follow her story and follow my story about getting her story told out there. So I'm currently working on a film that I'm producing as well. But yeah, that's who I am.
Yeah, you I know you know my friend she's on the channel. Terry Gentry.
Yes. I worked with her.
Her great grandfather was the first licensed dentist.
Yes, I know everything about Terry Gentry. We used to work together at the Black American West Museum.
Yes, there. Thank you for coming on the channel. You liked it. I mean, you and that riot, I had never heard about that.
Yes, you definitely, because that's and part of that was the start of the Notting Hill Carnival, which is a year celebration of African Caribbean culture in the it's the largest street festival in Europe, and it's the second largest in the world, and it is amazing. And that's, if you could ever, the CEO of the Notting Hill Carnival Committee, to interview him, I would suggest that you do that.
Yeah, I want to. So everybody, this is what I do with Strong Inspirations. I find these brilliant people, brilliant, conscious folks who everybody grows up somehow, some different circumstance, and it moves them in different ways. Can you see how it moved this sister? She said, y'all can say what y'all want to me. I'm still getting good grades, and I'm gonna find a way. And I'm not happy with this in some respects. I would suspect you probably said, I'm not happy, and somehow I'm not gonna let it define who I am. And you found other people over there who felt like you did, I'm sure, and they became your friends and cohorts. And so hit the subscribe button on the channel, my friends. Hit the like button on this video. Please, for sure, do it. Tell somebody about Strong Inspirations, because we give it to you straight, no chaser. And we give it to you with an accent if you need it. We put it in the British accent. Do that. And everybody, with this, I'll say to you, my sister, for sure, with all sincerity, I want you to stay strong, stay safe, stay on your grind. I love what you're doing. I'm coming to Denver at some point. I invite you to come to Detroit because we 80% Black, and we're going to trip you out here. You're going to be like, whoa, all these festivals and they Black people, Black music. Oh, you're going to love this. So come and check it out and stay strong. Keep doing what you're doing. Everybody, with that, I say bye-bye. We out. Peace.